Have you ever wondered how some people grow their houseplants indoors so big? Most of them grow them on moss poles. If you want to know more about moss poles and you want to try it yourself, then this video might be for you. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a UK houseplant creator and lover with over, I say it out loud now, 200, exactly 201 houseplants in my one-bedroom flat in London. I also organize another plant swap which bring houseplant lovers together all over the UK. If you are interested and you want to learn more about moss poles, keep on watching. What is a moss pole? A moss pole is a vertical support structure for your houseplant. I have one here. Here on my beautiful philodendron strawberry shake, you can see here. The whole point of having a moss pole is that the plant can grip onto the substrate which is in there. In this case, it's a sphagnum moss. So it's going to grow lots of roots. So it can grow more roots while it's growing up and then support itself even better and absorb more nutrients, which then results in bigger leaves and bigger plants. That's exactly how the plants grow in their natural habitat. They are climbing onto trees. What are the pros and the cons of moss poles? Pros are definitely that the leaves are growing bigger because it is mimicking their natural habitat and it gives you a stronger plant. Some of the cons are it is a lot more maintenance to have your houseplant on a moss pole because you need to stay consistent with keeping your moss pole moist. It can get a little bit more messy as well because the moss can fall out and it's a little bit messier to repot compared to repot a houseplant into soil or pond. One of the annoying things of having moss poles are definitely the pests. We all hate pests. I only had fungus gnats in my moss poles because the moss poles, they are constantly wet. They shouldn't be soggy, but they are constantly moist. And fungus gnats love that and they're going to lay their eggs in it, which you can help out to use some mosquito bites or some water hydrogen peroxide mixture when you water them, but they will be a little annoying flies flying around you if you have moss poles. Last year, oh my god, I hope not this year, I did had thrips everywhere in my collection and some of them are still bouncing back, but it took me quite a couple of months, more than 6 months to get that under control. But that's just part of the journey. You will be rewarded with beautiful, beautiful big leaves. Which plants wants? None of the plants need a moss pole, but which plant want a moss pole? You can see it on the aerial roots because they will start searching for something to climb on. So this is my Monstera dubia. And she will 100% show you that she wants a moss pole. So yeah, she definitely shows you with lots of the aerial roots that she wants a moss pole. And we're going to extend her moss pole today because she is finally thrip free. I was waiting to extend it on purpose so the thrips would not lay their eggs into the new bit of the moss. So you have the aerial roots reaching and trying to grab onto things. I had one plant which attached itself to my wall in my flat. So you will see it. But I have a super cool example of how big the growth can be. Because this Cebu blue, can't even get it properly in the frame, which is absolutely stunning. Used to be a cutting of this. So those are exactly the same plants. Those are all Cebu blue cuttings. I just kept them in this little terrarium takeaway container for years. I have not watered, maybe I watered them once or twice. The moss here turned green and it is beautifully rooted. So if you compare the size of this little leaf to that's the same plant off the same cutting, which I took at the same time. The Cebu Blue though is not my biggest plant on the Mosspole I own. It is my Rosé Bueno, which I got at another plant swap in Birmingham, I believe. They were just left over from a goodie bag. And this is what's grown into. I think I got it back in 2022 or 23. It has the first blooms now as well. It is so happy. The stem is thicker than my thumb, which is insane. I had to change cameras for a second, try to get this monster in a positive way in. This is my Rosé Bueno. As mentioned before, I got this one at another plant swap 2022 as a one leaf cutting, and the leaves are enormous. If you see my underarm, it's basically longer than my arm, but it's absolutely beautiful, chill plant. And I'm going to show you something really cool as well. My Rosé Bueno, which recently got a chop and extend, hence all those leaves at the bottom are a bit sad, but this is so cool. I actually have 2 plumes growing on it. I never seen a Philodendron Rosé Bueno bloom before, so I'm very, very proud to have it here. It hasn't opened yet, and that's why the recent leaf is quite small compared to all the other ones, because it is putting all the energy producing the plumes. So I'm super, super excited, and I cannot wait for it to grow even bigger. You've seen some of my philodendrons on the Mosspoles, and I absolutely love them. For me, it's worth putting that effort in to have big plants. I love big plants. I love my baby plants too, like, you know, my variegated Christmas cactus, which is so cute and has some new growth. I personally just absolutely love them. But there are a few plants which do like to climb, but you don't have to put them onto a Mosspole. That will be fine. We have a Hoya, which I just put on a random trellis, and you see it's just climbing along on there. It looks pretty happy. We all know I'm not a Hoya person. I'm trying to be, but so far it's not happening. And another plant which at some point will start trailing, so you can decide if you want her to trail or if you want to put a pole on there, either if it's moss pole or just a plain like garden stake. I don't like to use bamboo poles because they're not exactly straight and they can rot as well if you keep the substrate too wet. But one of the plants you can put are definitely syngoniums, any kind. They will come out bushy in the very lush. They will grow very, very full and lush in the beginning. When they're going to reach their trailing bit, then you will see that they will start trailing. You can put them on a stake. Yeah, so syngonium, you can put them as a trailing plant or you can train them to grow upwards as well. But I wish they would stay like this. just nice and bushy and wouldn't trail. Now is the question, do I pot up my houseplant in soil or pond? For the actual substrate, I am using mostly semi-hydro. I still have a few in a houseplant soil mix and then the Mosspole on top. But what I find is that if you forget to water your Mosspole, because you know, life happens. I cannot be there every time and water them, or sometimes I forget. I don't have to worry about, you know, overwatering the pond, because I just can chuck out the excess water or reuse the excess water for another Mosspole to hydrate. So this one got tried out very sadly and had thrips. Said last year was horrible with thrips. I never had thrips so bad. I could not rehydrate the Mosspole because this soil was way too wet. I had to wait until the soil was dried out for me to water the Mosspole, which then it turned into this. For me personally, it does not work. It might work for you. With the semi-hydro, I just can put my Mosspole in the shower. I turn on the shower, I drench the moss with water, and then it's nicely hydrated, and then just chuck away the excess water and then put it back and keep watering. How I keep on top of watering, I have this really cool 3D printed pin. Do you say pin? Which has a little needle on the top, and I just poke some pinholes. I'm just poking pinholes onto bottom, and then I'm going to place that on top of the Mosspole, and I just water them. Important with the watering as well, I always add fertilizer. There are not many nutrients in sphagnum moss, and there are no nutrients in pond. So if you use those, always add nutrients for your plant to feed on so it can grow happy and healthy. So now we're coming to the fun part, which is I'm going to do one extend method, and I'm going to attach a new Mosspole to my recovering. This one is my Philodendron Majestic, which is absolutely beautiful. I cut it back fully last year and let it regrow, and I think it's ready for a Mosspole now. And then we are going to extend my dubia because she really needs it. Let's go. The sun came out. For this one, I have a Mosspole set, which is from Mrs. 3 Design. They are absolutely amazing. They are 3 printing Mosspoles, and they look beautiful. That whole parcel looks like this, which, as you can see, is super easy to attach. Those are already, there is some plastic. It's a D-shaped Mosspole. So all of the moss is not going to dry out as quickly. I've sent me another pokey. This is the drip feeder. So we're going to poke some holes on there, but we do that in the end. This is the bit which is going to go into the pot, and then just stack it together and fill it with moss. I think we just stuck those together like this. Yes. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to fill this with moss before attaching it. I am so happy the sun is back out. British winter is absolutely miserable. So here I have a container full of sphagnum moss, and the only thing we're going to do is I'm going to put it like this. We're going to fill the moss in there. And you see, if I say messy, so important is that you don't squeeze your moss in too tightly. Just leave it quite loosish, so you have some air gaps for the roots to grow in, because we know that roots need to get air so they don't rot. Okay. Yes, just like this. So this is how it looks like now. And what I normally love to do when I'm adding a new plant onto a Mosspole is I'm going to add the plant onto the Mosspole first before I put it back into a pot. So here we have the plant, which is fully out of the substrate. Oh my god, this is so messy. Should have used my potting mat. But what I am going to do is I will just hold it and attach it as close as I can to the moss, like so. I am back. I had to find some Velcro. Let me come a little closer. So what I normally do when I attach a plant new to a Mosspole is I'm going to check where the aerial roots are growing. You can see those right here. You can see those right here. And this I'm going to attach to the Mosspole, and hopefully the aerial roots will grow into its new substrate. So don't think of soil and semi-hydro are the main substrate. It's going to be the sphagnum moss. So, and what I'm going to do, I hope you guys can see that, kind of forcing, like this, the aerial roots onto the moss, and then we will attach it with a Velcro. And I want it really, really tight. Right, so there we have it. That Mosspole is super, super close to the moss, and then hopefully in a few weeks' time it has rooted all into the sphagnum moss. And now what is left is just to repot it up into a container. And how I'm going to do that is I'll use a clear container like this. What is really important, if you use soil as your potting substrate, that your Mosspole and the actual moss is not touching the substrate. Make sure there is a little gap. And I will using my pon mixture, which we sterilized. So we have some pon in there. We're going to put the roots. We're going to put the roots in the pot. And then just pop in the Mosspole. Make sure your Mosspole is put in straight so it doesn't topple over or it doesn't fall over when it gets too top heavy, because that tends to happen. Give it a little tap. Okay. Make sure it's straight, like that. And then the last bit to do is to poke some holes into the water feeder. So, which is going to be super easy with that pokey thing I showed before. I'll poke 3 holes in there. And then we just add this to the top and we can water the plant. I tend not to water the pot anymore at all because I just keep constantly the Mosspole moist. So the excess water will just be left into the water reservoir from the pond substrate. So now we're going to do that fun task to extend the Monstera dubia's Mosspole and bring her facing forward. Not going to lie, I'm not looking forward to that. That's not going to be easy to bend her forward. As you can see, this is a completely different Mosspole, which has like some chicken wire, you say that? Chicken wire on top. This is like the proper DIY Mosspoles I used to do. like this, and this is what we're going to extend the moss pole with. So we are just going to bend it this direction. Those are super cool because they are clear in the back, so you can see the roots growing, and because they are closed at the back fully, the moss will not dry out as fast as normally, which is good, which means there's less watering. The idea is this one is wider than the moss pole it's attached to it already. The idea is that we're going just to stack the moss pole on top, obviously with moss inside. I like to fill my moss poles before I stack them on there. It's just a lot less messy for me. Some people do it differently, but there is no right or wrong in doing that. And we have already a pole inside here for the stabilization, so like a garden stake, a metal garden stake. We're pushing the monstera forward, just stacking the moss pole on top, and then we hope for the best. As you can see, this bit has no holes. This is the little gap I talked before you should have between your pot and your moss pole. We are going to do is we are just going to cut it. We don't need it, so we are going to cut it all off. So it's this bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill it with moss. It doesn't have to be the whole way up, and we close it, and then we just stack it on top of the Monstera dubia. Again, I'll have my moss here. I'm going just to have, you can see here on the moss, it started to turn green again. So it is growing. Again, don't do it too tightly. And we're just going to click and close the moss pole. This is what it looks like now. And now we're going to get our dubia and stick it on top. This is a little bit of the messy bit. So my camera just cut off for a second. So I have the moss pole here now, and what I'm going to do is, let me put that this way, I will add some moss right here and then stack this moss pole on top. I will fill that empty gap, which will connect our two moss poles. Now we're going to stack that extension on top. That was easy. You can see that this is a completely different moss pole because I want to chop and extend this when it has grown onto that one and get rid of the bottom moss pole. Not get rid, I will gift it to a friend. Okay, so the goal is to attach it like this, but there is still some empty space with moss. So we will keep adding moss. And this is the messy part. I think that's okay. We are going to do the same, Velcro this, and I will put a tight Velcro where instead of cable ties where I connected the two moss poles together. So first tie will be around here, just to help our plant, just to help the Monstera root quickly into there. And the next step is we will adjust this and straighten the pole up. Again, make sure it's all nice and straight. I know that looks really weird here because those are different size poles. But as I mentioned, as soon I get one leaf into there, I will chop it off and then we will give the bottom part to a friend. I had to move out a little bit from the sun. So this is all my tips and tricks about moss poles, how to grow your houseplant big with them. So again, quickly recap, it's really important to have really good light. If it's not natural or direct sunlight, going to use some grow lights. Then nutrition, give your houseplant always a little feed winter and summer when it's on the moss pole, because sphagnum moss doesn't have any nutritional value. I personally love moss poles. For me, it is worth the hassle just to keep them constantly not sogging wet but moist, and make sure they don't dry out fully. Yes, it is a little bit more maintenance, but if you get rewarded with such beautiful and big leaves, for me it's worth the work. If you have any more questions about moss poles, don't be shy, just ask them in the comment section down below. And if you like this video and you would like to see more videos, then just subscribe to my channel up here. I really would appreciate it. And well, I hope to see you at the next one. Bye!